Imagine a world where the money you work for every day doesn't just disappear into rent, bills and taxes, but instead secretly flows upward, enriching an invisible elite. Where the harder you work, the more the system benefits those who control the flow of money. While your purchasing power quietly erodes, central banks, those seemingly untouchable institutions were told stabilize economies, do far more than manage interest rates. They create money, lend it, and profit from it in ways most people never notice. Today, we're going to expose how the money you earn feeds a system designed to profit from your labor and why it's been happening for centuries. To understand this, we have to go back over 400 years to the early 1600s, when the foundations of modern banking were laid. The Bank of Amsterdam was one of the first examples of a central institution controlling currency. Soon after, the Bank of England, founded in 1694, revolutionized the way nations funded themselves. Governments needed money for wars, infrastructure, and debt repayment, but taxing citizens alone wasn't enough. Central banks offered a clever solution. They would lend money to governments, and in return, governments promised to pay it back with interest. The twist, however, was that these banks didn't just lend existing money, they created new money through fractional reserve banking. A bank might hold a fraction of deposits in reserve, lending out multiple times that amount. Essentially, money was being generated from nothing. This system became a tool for generating enormous profits for those who controlled it. Every loan, every government bond, every increase in the money supply created new wealth, but not for the average worker. Citizens labored, earned wages, and paid taxes, while the money system itself quietly expanded around them. The illusion of stability was maintained. People believed currency represented real value, backed by gold or silver, when in reality, much of it was nothing more than promises and trust in an institution few truly understood. Figures like John Law in France and Alexander Hamilton in the United States were early architects of this approach, linking public debt directly to national economic growth, while also embedding a subtle dependency. Governments, through them, citizens, became reliant on this artificially created wealth. By the 19th century, central banking had cemented its power. The creation of the Federal Reserve in 1913 in the United States marked a pivotal moment, ostensibly created to stabilize the banking system and prevent crises. The Fed introduced a new mechanism, the ability to create money on demand. It could lend to banks, buy government bonds, and effectively control the supply of money in the economy. What most people don't realize is that every new dollar created is not distributed equally. The banks and the government, connected by a complex web of debt instruments and interest payments, profit from the creation of money long before it reaches ordinary citizens. Meanwhile, the average worker's wages remain largely stagnant, or labor effectively subsidizing the system that produces profits elsewhere. This profit mechanism relies on a subtle cause and effect cycle. When central banks inject new money into the economy, it first flows to financial institutions, large corporations, and government projects. These actors can invest, speculate, and earn returns before prices rise for ordinary goods. Meanwhile, ordinary citizens encounter inflation. The cost of living increases, but wages rarely keep pace. In essence, the system extracts wealth from laborers, redistributing it toward the top. The more central banks create money, the greater the advantage for those who receive it first. This is sometimes called the Cantillon Effect, named after economist Richard Cantillon, who observed that the first recipients of new money always benefit disproportionately compared to those who receive it later. History is full of examples where this system has produced both prosperity for the few and hardship for the many. During the Great Depression, the Federal Reserve's policies exacerbated economic contraction. Despite their stated goal of stabilization, banks that had access to liquidity profited, while ordinary citizens faced unemployment, foreclosures, and debt. During the 1970s stagflation, central banks expanded the money supply to combat unemployment, leading to runaway inflation that eroded the savings of everyday people. Meanwhile, those connected to financial markets were insulated or even enriched by rising asset prices. The pattern is clear. Central banking creates profit opportunities for insiders, while ordinary workers absorb the costs. The breaking point in this system often comes when debt reaches unsustainable levels. Nations continually borrow from their own central banks or from private banks, paying interest with funds extracted from citizens through taxation. Over time, public debt balloons, and the central bank earns enormous profits from interest payments. Unlike ordinary businesses, they can operate with near immunity from failure. If a bank collapses, governments step in with taxpayer money. If a currency loses value, ordinary citizens shoulder the consequences. It's a system where risk is privatized for profits, but losses are socialized onto the population at large. Attempts to fix or regulate this system have largely failed. Gold standard reforms, anti-inflationary policies, and regulatory oversight have been introduced periodically, yet the underlying profit engine remains intact. Modern tools such as quantitative easing simply amplify the effect. Money is created digitally, injected into banks and markets, and siphoned toward assets, while wages and savings lag behind. Every major financial crisis in recent decades, from the 2008 global recession to contemporary market fluctuations, the recurring pattern: those who understand the system profit enormously. Those who work for wages pay the hidden cost. Today, the parallels are striking. Global debt has reached unprecedented levels, exceeding $300 trillion across nations. Central banks continue to expand balance sheets, buying government bonds and corporate debt with newly created money. Meanwhile, ordinary workers face stagnant wages, rising living costs, and diminishing purchasing power. Recent data reveals that the wealthiest 1% control nearly half of global assets, a direct result of repeated financial cycles where money creation privileges insiders. Inflation, quietly engineered by money expansion, erodes the value of savings, forcing individuals to work harder for the same lifestyle. The more money central banks print, more profits flow to connected institutions and investors, and the more ordinary people must labor to maintain their standard of living. Yet few understand the full mechanics. When central banks create money, it enters the system as credit, debt, and financial instruments. Banks lend it to corporations who invested in assets or stock buybacks. The increase in asset prices generates returns for investors long before prices for everyday goods rise. Meanwhile, wages, rents, and essential costs climb. The ordinary worker sees only the consequences: more expensive groceries, higher rents, and loans that seem never-ending. In essence, the system transforms human labor into interest payments and profit streams for institutions that create money from thin air. The lesson is not that central banking is inherently evil, but that it is a carefully engineered system that benefits a small group while extracting wealth from the labor of the many. The historical record is clear. From 17th century Europe to modern America, the patterns repeat. Fractional banking, government debt, money printing, and interest collection form an interlinked cycle of profit extraction. Citizens believe in currency and institutions, trusting that money holds value. Yet the value they work for is constantly diluted by a system designed to profit first and foremost from the creation of money itself. So what should we take away from this? First, understand that money is not neutral. Every policy, every decision by central banks, every expansion of the money supply favors those who receive it first. Second, recognize the hidden cost of debt and inflation. While wages stagnate, the system quietly siphons wealth upward. A slow, almost invisible redistribution that accumulates over years. Third, educate yourself about financial structures. Knowledge of how central banks, fractional reserve systems, and government debt function is not just academic, it is essential to navigating a world where your labor is the primary source of profit for invisible forces. Finally, consider this. The next time money is created, injected, or lent, ask yourself who benefits first and who pays last. The system is not an accident. It is the product of centuries of design, experimentation, and refinement. The more we understand it, the better we can protect ourselves, our families, and our communities from its hidden consequences. Central banks will continue to print profits, but armed with knowledge, we can at least see the mechanism and its effect on our lives. If this opened your eyes, take the next step. Examine your own finances, question assumptions about money, and learn how to leverage knowledge to protect your wealth. History has shown that understanding the system is the first step toward empowerment.